Sadly, I could not get the rights to Fleetwood Mac's Tusk, but there will be plenty of axe shredding in this video. Hello everyone, Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here to talk about First Ask Tuskkor. He is a wonderful, fairly new Ogryn tribe damage dealer, and I wanted to do a video on him because there actually haven't been a lot of videos on this dude. He came out somewhat recently, and he was one of these champions that was flagged as good enough, not great, but on my main account, I lacked a damage dealer in the Ogryn faction. In fact, my Ogryn hard faction wars really has been struggling. We'll even take a look at it quickly to see how bad it is. But I was struggling to auto even floor 1, and I only could get past stage 2 with a full manual team that I had to work really hard on. That only got me 2 stars. So Tuskkor did all kinds of cool damage and brought a fun new champion to my account. And honestly, he has been absolutely amazing. Now for this video, I did revise his build just a little bit because I've had better gear than what I had him on previously, which has been great. So we're going to talk about how to gear this dude, what this dude does, and how you can best use him, and where he might help your account, especially if you are a newer account. I think this will actually help your account a ton. And if you're a late game account, well, you know what? He's a good damage dealer for Faction Wars Hard. So that is something to be aspired to, because honestly, Faction Wars Hard is a bit of a pain. So let's get into talking about the first acts. Alrighty, so we have First Axe Tuskkor here, and this dude is really kind of good looking. He apparently is collecting ears of some kind. I'm sure there's some kind of lore story about that. Looks like he has got a boar. I forgot what that is, like a Havark or something like that. It starts with an H. I really wish I could remember what that is. It is a style of dress with the animal and the animal head specifically. So he is definitely kind of cool looking here. He's got the club, he's got the axe. Actually, he's got 2 axes here, so those are double axes. That makes sense because he's the first axe. I wonder which one of those is the first axe. You know, let me know down in the comments below which one of the 2 axes is the first axe. Probably the one in his right hand if he's right-handed. I can kind of assume that. But again, really cool looking. He's got that Ogryn vibe while being a huge beast. Definitely a good looking champion. Raid again knocks this stuff out of the park. You know, it's nice to see some good looking Ogryns, honestly, because some of the Ogryns are not the greatest looking champions in the game. So I mean, he's no war mother, but you know what? He's a pretty sexy beast. So with that said, what does this dude do? Well, he is an absolute nuker of a damage dealer. So let's go through his kit. So A1 is a double hitter, 25% chance of gaining an extra turn, just flat out. Doesn't need books to get that any better. You know, wouldn't mind. Actually, this would make it worthwhile to book if this was a chance to, in 25, including to a 35% chance, would make him worth booking on that, which is actually kind of cool. Honestly, I've been using this dude without any books at all, and he's been doing great. The books on a damage dealer, though, are actually generally recommended because a damage dealer gets a bunch of extra damage from these books. That's 20% extra damage just from the books. So that's actually a pretty huge gain in damage for somebody that is dedicated in dealing damage in the first place. So, you know, nice to see. Here we go. His A2 here, a 4-turn cooldown, bookable to 3 with an extra 20% damage. So again, we're talking 4 books here, 3 books here. So 7 books so far, not too many books to invest in a champion, which is kind of nice for a damage dealer. Attacks all enemies. Damage inflicted by this skill is increased by 10% for each buff on this champion. So he has a built-in buff him and do extra damage, which is kind of cool. Decreases the cooldown of this skill by 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. And if this attack kills 2 or more enemies, grants this champion an extra turn instead. Now he doesn't get the cooldown effect if he kills 2 or more enemies. He just gets a straight up extra turn. But extra turns, really cool, because then he can go into his A1 or maybe go into his A3 if you hadn't A3'd yet. He does need to kill 2 enemies, but this extra turn motif is actually really kind of key to his kit. So let's keep on going here. First Axe Fury. This is, again, 3 books here, so 10 books total gets you to the top of this guy's damage, as well as 3 turn cooldowns with everything. Kind of cool. Attacks 1 enemy 2 times before attacking, places an increase attack and increase crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. Now, it's a kind of a greedy buff, but a greedy buff for a damage dealer is not a bad bad thing. He ignores shield buffs and grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. Now, he does not have a innate decrease or ignore damage, which is, mildly unfortunate, but he increases his own attack and increases the crit damage, making him a great damage dealer. He does no buffs, so he has 0 chance of sheeping himself, and grants an extra turn if this kills an enemy, grants an extra turn if this kills 2 enemies, grants an extra turn here. This all works into this Brutal Vehemence passive. Each extra turn this champion gets increases their crit damage by 10%, stacks up to 50%. Each extra turn this champion gets also decreases the damage they receive by 5%, stacks up to 50%. So as he continues to take extra turns, he gets more damage and he receives less damage, up to a 50% damage reduction from the damage he receives. He has some interesting uses as a Hydra direct damage dealer, which, to be fair, I've actually not tried, so probably not going to get a chance to try it in this video, but if you'd like to see a video where I talk about this dude and other damage dealers in Hydra, do let me know down below. I think he could be a very good long-term damage dealer in Hydra, because eventually he'll take 50% less damage, which will make him significantly tankier. The extra turns shouldn't be too hard to stack that crit damage up to 50% extra. And, yes, it's extra 50% crit damage, so it's not 50% extra damage, but that is still a sizable damage increase. Even if you've got, 250% crit damage, that gets it up to 300%. That is a 20% extra crit damage still. That's a sizable amount of extra damage that you're getting for getting extra turns, which you already want, because you're going to be doing more damage when you get extra turns anyway, because you're getting free damage from the extra turn. He also does have an aura, 30% attack aura in all battles. Very usable if you can actually use that attack aura. I tend to prefer speed auras in a lot of the end game content, but for Hydra, this could be a very good damage dealing aura, 30% in all battles. And of course, his stats are pretty decent. He's a little slowish, but 100 speed, around 9900 speed's not too horrible for a damage dealer. And Ogryns tend to be a little slower anyway, so I guess it's not too bad. Almost 1500 attack, decent HP, okay defense. He's not going to win any awards for such amazing stats here, but his multipliers are very good on all of these abilities. They do a ton of damage. And again, he is just a machine of taking extra turn after taking extra turn. Very Rotos-like in some ways. You might be able to even use him in Arena as a Roto substitute. Being a force-based damage dealer is nice to have, just because it is nice to have damage dealers of all affinities. Generally, a force damage dealer is always a bit of a problem because you had a lot of good spirit support champions, but there's also a lot of magic damage dealing champions. So the fact that he is counter to some other damage dealers means that, he might actually be usable in a lot of content where you're worried about him surviving, because he won't take damage directly from other magic damage dealers as easily as he might otherwise. And fortunately, there's not a lot of good spirit damage dealers, just the way the game is for some reason. I don't know why. As a result, he's not vulnerable to a lot of other damage dealers either, at least a lot of meta damage dealers in Arena. So could have some good use in Arena, could have some fun use in Hydra. I have found a lot of use for him in Ogryn Faction Wars, and do not think he will ever relieve my Ogryn Faction Wars, just because I need somebody to just bang out damage, and this guy bangs out damage pretty well. These are the masteries we've got for him. Given he does not have any debuffs and very few buffs, there is really no reason to go down the support tree. He doesn't need the extra HP or healing the support tree. He doesn't need the extra accuracy the support tree does. And honestly, his buffs, especially with all the extra turns he's getting, it might be nice to be able to get this one here that gives him the extra turn on a buff 30% of the chance of the time. But since he only puts 2 buffs up total, both of them on him, this seems like a waste of an entire tree to go down to give you some additional stuff. So I like the defense. I like the offense tree. As far as the defense tree is concerned, if you're going to go more of a PvP build, you're going to want to go down here. The resistance versus the defense is not a huge problem, but what you're going to want for PvP is you're going to want this damage reduction when champion is critical hit. But since I'm using him for PvE, I would much rather have the AoE damage reduced by 5%, because that's going to be more common for him to need to survive through. And if you want to keep him alive, the extra healing and shield receives can be a good way. Otherwise, you could certainly argue that maybe this extra health could be good if he's always max HP, but I couldn't always guarantee he was going to be max HP, so I felt keeping him alive and healing him was a better option. But you could argue either one of these things. This, however, is probably the best of these things here. So you're going to go there. Obviously, you're going to get your crit rate and your crit damage because he's a damage dealer, so it just makes sense to go that route. You could certainly, if you for some reason the build has enough crit rate, you could go down for the 75 attack, but I generally find that this crit rate is just a safer option for you, because oftentimes you're struggling going to get that extra crit rate with the crit damage gloves, with everything else. And that 5% crit rate is just a much better overall for building a champion stat than 75 extra attack. And if you end up not using it, I'd rather not use it and not have to constantly redo this. So as far as damage dealing is concerned, you could argue maybe that Ruthless Ambush would be very good, but since he's taking a lot of extra turns, there's a chance he might be hitting people a couple of extra times, although he does get some reset for killing people, so this extra 8% on the first attack could be very good for you. I, on the other hand, like the fact that you can get extra speed when he starts killing people as well, because not only will he start taking extra turns, but when he's not taking a turn, he'll get back to his turn faster, so the extra speed is very helpful here. Single out, always good, because that's a good way to make sure you kill low HP targets, but you could certainly argue that Life Drinker would be good for long-term stability in fights, especially in Hydra could be very good. As I mentioned before, Ruthless Ambush could be very good as well. These, I think, are probably the best overall, but I could argue for any 4 of these things here. Meanwhile, in the defense tree, there's really no reason not to go Resurgent, just a chance to remove debuffs if you take a little more damage than normal. You know, this Shadow Heal doesn't really help him too much unless you're really fighting a lot of things that are going to be healing each other, and then 10% of their max HP, cooldown 1 turn if they kill somebody. Not a bad option, honestly, as well, if you're worried about keeping him alive too. So I could see either one of these two being a good option. I just kind of like this one because this is actually a good way to remove controls if you take damage that doesn't kill you, but it's significant enough that you lose enough max HP. So very, very good. I like, you know, any of those two would be probably pretty good. Looking over here, we're talking Bring It Down, very good because he's not going to have a ton of max HP. So that's 6% extra damage almost all the time, especially against PvE waves. And then, you know, a chance to reset some of these skills when he's doing 30% or more damage. Ideally, he should be doing 30% or more damage because he should be killing people as quickly as possible. So a good chance to get around to some of his skills faster. And since those skills often give him an extra turn, if he can get the extra turn, get the cooldown as well, you can get back and forth between his A2 and his A3 without actually really using the A1, which will give you a pretty amazing combination of just constant killing if you do it right. As far as the defense is concerned here, delay death, always good. Means long-term fights, you're going to take reduced damage. He's not landing any of these controls, so the leech doesn't make any sense, and he's not placing a lot of buffs, so extra resistance on him is not going to do anything. So there's no reason to go over here, you know, increase resistance for each debuff on this champion. You're not resisting anything with this dude. So this is the delay death is the way to go. And then finally on the defense tree, maybe this would be good for PvP, because in PvP you might take critical hits and you'll get turn meter boost, so that's pretty helpful. Otherwise, Retribution is great. You get a chance to counterattack if you take 25% or more max HP. Plus, of course, combined with the cleansing, somebody hits you and they get smacked back. That could be very, very good. As far as these here, Methodical, very, very helpful overall because you want him taking a ton of extra turns. So eventually you want his A1 damage to stack up. And then finally, Kill Streak, just increase damage for killing things. That's always good. Blood Shield gives you a shield based on your max HP. If you kill somebody, he's not going to have a ton of max HP. So Blood Shield, probably not a particularly great one for him. And then finally, Stoked Fury, more damage when you're debuffed. No, thank you. I don't want to be debuffed if I can avoid it. So these are really the two ones to go for. Finally, there's a damage dealer that's going to be damage dealing, wave nuking / PvP nuking. You're going to want Helm Smasher. You're going to want Ignore Defense. If you're very, very early, you could argue that War Master is the next option to go for because that would help you against Hydra in some wave-based damage as well as bosses if you're looking to have him be a boss killer as well. Eventually, in harder content, Helm Smasher is going to deliver more for you because not only are you going to have the chance to ignore 25% extra defense, that's going to move into the gear that we're going to put on that we will be talking about shortly. Looking to start a brand new account in 2025 with Raid? Use my link down below, set up a new account with a brand new email, and you can start off with Elenarl, a wonderful legendary that can do all kinds of fun stuff for you. And at level 15, you'll also get a Tuskkor, a wonderful support reviver who has been a big carry for me on my accounts. You also use the code Demon Slayer to get Tholan as well, and to get Lemonisi at the moment because Lemonisi is currently the free login champion. Start yourself off with 3 great legendaries and a wonderful epic, and enjoy starting a brand new raid journey in 2025. Now, as you see, I am not fortunate enough to have a blessing for this dude. Very unfortunate. He is not even on my wish list though, because there are certainly more important champions to my account to get a blessing, but I am going to be excited when I get a blessing for him. As far as the blessings that are going to be helpful for you, you could certainly say Heaven Cast is a good one since he self-buffs already. That would be an extra 2% damage, plus he's going to get more buffs from other champions, hopefully, so that can be a good one for you as well. Lightning Cage is not a bad option if you're worried about keeping some of those buffs or losing them. It's also also very good for putting stone skin on him. If you're going to build him for PvP, you're probably going to want stone skin. Intimidating presence, probably not really good for a damage dealer. You could maybe argue Phantom Touch is actually not bad for him because he's going to be doing some extra damage and he has a huge attack. So this is going to basically add extra damage onto anything else you are doing, which could get him some of those extra turns that you may want. Very, very good overall. Cruelty, probably not what you want on him. That's more of a support one that decreases defense here. On the other hand, Crushing Rend, if you get him to a 6-star blessing for a PvE champion nuker, Crushing Rend is absolutely amazing because that is going to be ignoring 1% defense for every 10 levels the enemy, and most of the enemies at the top end of the game are level 350, which is 35% extra defense ignore. You could certainly argue that maybe at 5-star, maybe this having 2 attacks might be okay as well. It'll certainly wear off in longer fights, so it's not going to be a good Hydra one. If you're looking for a Hydra damage dealer, you're certainly going to like different options as well. Probably Heaven Cast for a Hydra build, especially at level 5. Not too bad if you're looking to clear waves pretty quickly for a wave clearing nuker. Level 5, and definitely level 6 is going to be absolutely huge. And the level 6 one's so huge. The difference between 1% every 10 levels versus 1% every 25, that is basically 60% better. It's huge. It's a huge amount of increase and ignore defense. As far as relics are concerned, you're looking for relics that are going to give him crit damage or attack or speed. I've got him with a Gore Crescent. The Gore Crescent is actually kind of a nice option for him because he's getting all those extra turns, especially if he's killing anybody. So he kills somebody and then immediately gets a 20% boost on his next attack, which helps him kill somebody, which might get him an extra turn, and he's stacking that extra damage. So the Gore Crescent is actually a pretty good one, but if you're looking for something else, maybe the knife would be a good one. Cat's Gaze could be a certain good one as well. But you're looking for things to increase his damage, increase his attack, increase his crit damage there as well. You know, even something like the Unholy Grail is not the worst thing in the world for you if you just got to throw something on him. To be fair, I had the Scroll of the Unseen on him for a while just because it got me extra stats, but I recently built a Gore Crescent and didn't have anything else to throw it on, so he seemed like a good champion to add it to, particularly because without investing any particular growth to it, I managed to get it to +9 already, so it's going to be giving me an extra 30% damage if I kill somebody on the next attack, plus it gives me 200 extra attack and 6% crit damage. So very, very good relic to get on a lot of champions that are going to be doing wave clase damage, especially if they're going to be dealing damage the next turn and possibly to the same wave as well, because that's, I think, is when the Gore Crescent is going to process it. Same with the gems. You're looking for extra damage, like 5% more damage against enemies under full HP. He might be able to one-shot somebody that has not been hit before. That could be good. I didn't have another good one, so turn meter effect, this is always a generic good one to put on somebody. And then after killing an enemy, where his next attack will ignore 12% of the target's defense, which rolls into the Gore Crescent well. So he's ignoring an extra 12% defense on top of 20 or 30% more damage on a second hit after he kills somebody first. Absolutely amazing, and you know, should be a fun champion for some damage. So let's take him for a damage test in Doom Tower. So what kind of stats are you looking for on your first axe? Well, you are going to be looking to, as a damage dealer, you want that crit rate to be 100%, unless for some reason you're building him for a team that you know is going to have either a crit rate aura or crit rate increase is going to be 100% all the time up on him. Otherwise, yeah, you want that crit rate. You want a ton of crit damage. You want to stack some attack as well. You certainly want to balance these things out a little bit. I would like to get more crit damage on him, but you know, this is the gear I have at the moment. I am certainly working on some of my gear ascensions, and then as far as the actual attack is concerned, this is a decent amount of attack. You want some good speed on him as well. 223 is decent. I wouldn't mind him to be a little bit faster for Faction Wars Hard overall, but you know, we're still working on some of this stuff here. As far as the gear sets are concerned, you want to ignore defense gear sets. So you're looking for your Savage, you're looking for your Lethal, you're looking for your Instinct gear, that sort of stuff, or the Merciless gear. Merciless gear is what we've got him in here, and Merciless gear, because if you can actually get him to this level 9 piece, he has a 15% chance of taking an extra turn on the 9-piece set. But even without the 9-piece set, he has a chance to randomly decrease the cooldown and is ignoring 35% defense. So this has been good for him overall. Unfortunately, I don't have a good set of gloves and boots to put him on, at least without stealing them from somebody else. So I've got him in 7-piece Merciless and 2-piece speed to give me some of that extra speed. One of the things I would like to get is, this was crit rate, and I'd rebuilt him a little bit, so I didn't need the crit rate on here, and that should allow me to eventually get this to be a crit damage sub, but that's an extra 20% crit damage. That is a huge, huge help for damage here. I would eventually like to replace this attack amulet with crit damage, but I've got crit damage here in the subs, and I've got crit damage on the Ascension here, making this, you know, this is decent crit damage, but I could certainly get another 27% crit damage from there. I can get another 20% from here without changing the build too much. Heck, even my ring here, this is the best attack ring I have, which is a defense ring, and I just don't have the right set. I could certainly argue to get rid of that, but that's also giving me 5% extra speed, and it means I don't have to build anything else out here. So maybe I should pull that ring off for something else, but it's been okay. And at least we've got a decent attack banner here. The banner can be just attack. You want some speed on there. I'd like some attack percent on the subs here, but the fact that this is attack with speed, it worked pretty well. I got Ascension for attack there as well. All good. You are looking for your attack percent chest. You are looking for either attack percent or speed on the boots. If you are going to go with attack percent on the boots, you're going to want a lot of speed on these boots to make sure that you don't miss out on too much speed, and you're probably going to want a speed Ascension. But since I had the attack percent Ascension, it seemed like a good fit for him to keep this as it is right now. And again, I would prefer a attack percent Ascension right here, but you know, HP doesn't suck, so it's at least not the worst thing that we could have happen here right now. And meanwhile, you're just looking for, you know, attack substats, crit damage substats, speed substats, and of course your crit rate on all this stuff. So, you know, pretty good helmet here. Wish this was speed instead of defense percent, but you can't be too picky on that. Again, this is a great shield. He doesn't need accuracy though, so, but this honestly doesn't matter, because if this was HP or defense percent, it wouldn't be super helpful for him, give him a little more survivability, but that's about it. There's no way you can get attack as a substat on a shield, so it is what it is. Certainly would like to grow this to be attack instead, but there's no reason to reroll some of this stuff right now. Certainly Ascensions, you're going to want attack on the top row, and you know, this could be at least be attack percent, but crit rate could be okay if you're struggling to get to that 100% crit rate, or crit damage would be preferable. You want attack percentage for the sub here, and again, just as you want attack or speed, you want that for also this Ascension there as well. So that is going to be how you're going to gear your Tuskkor, as we can show you the stats one last time here. You know, I've got almost 5.5k attack. I've got the 223 speed. I've got the 248 crit damage. You can kind of see around my head here. There we go. And I don't have a lot of resistance and accuracy because I don't need it. He doesn't need any resistance. He doesn't need any accuracy. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to do. So with all those build options, now let's take him into Doom Tower and do some damage testing. First off, and to be fair, this is not a good comparison damage test here that we're going to do, but we are in hard Doom Tower, floor 1, and I want to just take him by himself to show you the power of the fact that he is getting so many extra turns, how he can kind of just clear stuff by himself. So we're going to take him in here. We're going to turn off the auto. We are going to start off with the double hitter, because this is going to do more single target damage on somebody. We're going to aim for somebody that should be easy to kill. He is ignoring defense, so we're going to go for the Skull Crusher right over here. Not going to go for the bad affinity matchup here and hope we can get a single kill here. Not quite. So he does okay damage, but he certainly needs a little bit of support to do more damage. Again, he's not ignoring defense, so let's get him some support to actually ignore some defense, ignore some weaken to get some extra damage here, and you know, maybe even give him that extra attack to get some more damage out there. All right, so we've got Arbiter here to give him increased attack. We've got the decreased defense and weaken here. We did fail to land the decreased defense against one of these guys. Last time I ran this, we failed to land weaken, so I just wanted to make sure we hit the same dude. Now, with the decreased defense and weaken, and of course we're going to hit everything here. Boom, boom. He just deleted that dude for 90k HP and then another 73k HP. So he got one Helm Smasher's proc, added a ton of damage. Now the Gore Crescent's going to kick in. He's taking an extra turn. He's going to be getting himself an extra 10% crit damage. And now we can just do this single target. Boom. That was a ton of damage. That was over 200k that he was doing to those guys here. These are the bad affinities, so it's not surprising he didn't manage to kill all of them. But look, he killed 2 champion, so he got an extra turn. So we go down over here, kill that guy, got an extra turn. Boom, boom, kill that guy, got him some weak hits, still managed to kill him. That is a lot of damage and a lot of extra turns. It only took a little bit of setup, but now that he's gotten a couple of extra turns, we're on another floor right here. So let's just see how much damage he can do to this floor's Skull Crusher. We can just kind of block these guys out a little bit. He's got all of his skills back up because he's been killing people and resetting things and taking extra turns. He has taken enough extra turns where he has a ton of extra damage, so he should actually be at the full 50k extra crit damage. We don't have decreased defense or weaken, so again, we're not going to do too much damage here, but boom, boom. Wow, you see? The damage creep there, he increased the amount of damage he did a 40k and a 60k hit, which killed him, got him the extra turn. So on the second and third waves, he is increasing his damage tremendously, and we're almost knocking out these waves without decreased defense or weaken. And again, this dude doesn't have a blessing of any valuable. He's not anything that's valuable for his stats is concerned. He's not ignoring defense naturally, and honestly, his build is just kind of okay. I would generally prefer about 50% more crit damage on him for a general build on this account most of the time. So he's hitting pretty hard, doing a decent amount of damage, and hey, just clearing a bunch of stuff. So will he be able to survive through this? Well, we can give him the increased attack. Lydia can try to lock somebody out. Are you going to get a turn? Let's see if I can kill you. I can get extra turns, and we couldn't take a turn. So yeah, so he, obviously fears other problems are going to cause problems for him, so maybe he won't be able to clear this wave solo in his current build, but that should give you an idea of how much damage this guy does. The fact that with the damage scaling, he can start to do more and more damage before he gets to a boss, which means on a boss floor, he will probably have his max damage once you get to that boss. But for a wave clear floor, the fact that he will be constantly taking extra turns and getting extra attack and crit damage percent out of everything involved means that he should overall be very good on the wave clear because he's slowly but surely increasing his strength. And so the waves, as they get a little bit harder, he's going to hit that much harder, I guess, and just do some good damage. Now, is this an amazing top tier damage dealer? No, I've seen other champions do a little bit more. I think Tholen probably does a little bit more better damage dealing, but because of all the extra turn and the extra damage stacking, he has some potential to really just kind of go on a run and wipe a wave out and just be absolutely amazing at wiping a wave out. So here we are in arena, and we're just going to see how well he does damage. Now, I've not brought a decreased defense or weakened champion with, because generally in arena, I try not to use those too often because of sheep. Now, this team I picked out right here is just, kind of a generic team. Yes, we've got a UDK on this team, so that's certainly going to cause us a bit of problems, but it's one of the things that he does do. He does a double hitter on that A3, which means he might be able to hit around UDK with that second hit. So we're just going to kind of see how much damage he does. We're going to see if I can outspeed this guy right here. And if we can, well, I should be able to keep the turn meter and push him to take the first turn. So bring everyone in here. I am faster. That is great. So we get the turn meter boost here. Siffy gets us the increased speed as well as more turn meter. We get more turn meter from our Ostrid as well. And then we get some turn meter drop on the enemy team as well. And we do have weaken on here. So to be fair, we do actually have weaken available. So none of these guys are fresh. And we're going to see if we can kill, I want to kill the RB because I want to kill Rhonda because I want to kill somebody and then have him take an extra turn. So good news is UDK is not in Stone Skin, which means that we're actually a good affinity to be able to deal with the UDK. So boom. Wow. Okay. That was actually a lot harder than I was expecting. To be fair, I don't know how powerful this particular dude is, but we almost killed UDK with the first hit and absolutely murderized Rhonda with the second hit. So now we can go in with this AoE here, and wow, we did 200 and some odd damage for to Lydia there. Did almost 100k, not Lydia, RB, and almost 100k to UDK with that second wave of something. Now, I am sure that the Gore Crescent is helping a ton with that secondary hit, but again, if you get a right relic, this is the type of champion that Gore Crescent is going to be really, really good on. And yeah, he did a solid amount of damage here. I mean, my Ostrid actually hits pretty hard too, because she's got full crit rate and she can hit pretty hard too. And again, the over damage doesn't count here. So it looks like he didn't do a lot of damage compared to everybody else, but you guys saw the numbers. Those were absolutely amazing numbers. And, again, this is not a very great team here. In fact, looking at this guy, he's level 99 here. We'll talk about the Real Jeebus here. Real Jeebus, you are not a particularly high total power. So yeah, is this guy going to be a top tier damage dealer in arena? No. But if you're a little lower level and have builds like the build that I had there, where yes, I know he's in merciless, but it's not like that was an absolutely crazy statistical build. Very achievable, I think, for people in the mid game, closing in on the end game on a champion like this dude. Does good amount of damage, helps with the waves. I kind of regret not having Ogryn Faction Wars available, but seriously, this guy is a bit of a beast, and if you can make use of those extra turns, he can clear waves very well and bring a lot of damage for you. So there is First Axe Tuskkor, a very, very good Ogryn damage dealer for a faction that really does struggle with damage. Take a look at the Ogryn faction here, just take a look at him, and I'm sorry if I'm in the way a little bit, but you've got your Gizmak, who's a good damage dealer. You've got yourself, you know, the rest of these damage dealers. You know, Gerda is a poison-based damage dealer. Biggin, good damage dealer for a ton of AoEs, but honestly, he's certainly dated. I think Tuskkor probably hits a little bit harder. You could build Iggy for some damage, but his cooldowns are so long, it's definitely a problem. You've got Moto, who's a more recent addition, so Moto could be a good damage dealer for you. You've got Gurgo, but Gurgo's got all kinds of interesting other things you can do with him as well, so building him for pure damage may be difficult, and if you're going to build him for damage and other things as well, that's going to be a much harder endgame team to build. And Grazur is, you know, he's a good damage dealer for max HP hits, and of course he brings some other tankiness as well, but honestly Tuskkor may be one of the best damage dealers as far as just a pure, easy to build damage dealer in the Ogryn faction, you know, which honestly tells you how bad the Ogryn faction is in some ways as well. Could he be better? Yeah, he could certainly do a little more damage or have a few ways to ignore defense a little bit better. Maybe if his passive stacked some basic ignore defense every time he got an extra turn, so you had to kill somebody first, but then he starts stacking 5, 10, 15, 20, 25% extra ignore defense as he starts killing more people. That might make him a little more interesting as well. Certainly wouldn't necessarily help him in the arena, but it would turn him into possibly an absolutely busted Hydra damage dealer. So again, let me know if you want to see him do some damage in the Hydra. Let me know what you think of this dude. Is he amazing? Is he okay? You know, anything you think maybe I missed in ways you could possibly use this dude, other than, as I mentioned, I certainly, you know, wish I would have had a Hydra key I could have run him against my Thor, for example. Would have been a good, interesting comparison test for damage. So maybe we'll run a bunch of damage dealers against Thor as a interesting video sometime later on and see how that works. But you guys have been absolutely amazing. I'm making it for the end of this video. Much love to all of you. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I like to do guides and tutorials and other builds like this whenever I can, and it's always nice to cover a champion that honestly has not seen a lot of love in the content creator community because he is so new that not a lot of people have him. So if you're lucky enough to have a Tuskkor, congrats. I think he's a very good champion, and I think, you know, being one of the best damage dealers in this faction outside of the mythical is going to make him somebody who's going to be in my teams for quite a long time to come in the Ogryn faction. So appreciate you guys. Until the next video, I am Bront CatHerder.